Okay, so again, these are methods. I'm just showing you here the life cycle of the servlet, right? So it will load the init first, and then it will load the service, and then these two here don't get called because we didn't call them. Okay, so again, if you put your service method in here in your servlet, that means it's overriding your the parent's method. So if you don't use it, usually you don't have to use it. If you take it out, then it will call the parent's service method, and in that parent service method will call the doGet method. Okay, so for example, again, I'm running the same one here. You saw earlier there's nothing, it's blank, right? If I were to now, let's just say remove this, we'll comment this out. Okay, if I save and comment this service out, because it's not required. Okay, you don't have to implement it, it's not required, you're just overriding the parent's method. That's going to call the parent's method service, and that service will load the doGet method down here. Okay, so I'm going to go and then run this again. So you can see that it has the init, and then it loads the doGet. Okay, it didn't show the service because I'm using the parent's method, so therefore I don't see the output there. But the service actually loads the doGet method as a default. Okay, and then now because the doGet, if you look inside doGet here in the code, it has a method, a statement. We call it, I just call it doGet. That's this one here, right? It also has a response dot get writer, okay, dot append, and then you have the served at, and then append request. This is request here dot get context path. And this whole thing, you don't have to know what this is, but just to show you that it actually prints this out to the web page, whereas this one here prints only to the console, right? So you can do both ways. This is, the console is for like debugging purposes. When you build your application, you can output data to the console so you can see what they are. But to actually have it output to the web page, like you see here, you will use a response get writer method. Okay. So again, back here, if I do a source view, right click in here, do a view source. Again, this is just a web page. You see that this is the text inside that HTML file. Okay. So if you want to modify this, then you can change it so that it doesn't have to just display that. You could say something like, okay, well, before we get there. Okay, so now it calls the doGet method by the service. Okay, so again, if you uncomment this, let's just say I want to call it myself, right? If you save this again and run it, it should go, as you can see, it's still loading the old file. It's still on the cache system. So again, just close it and then run it again a couple times until it loads the correct version. Okay, so you will see that sometimes it doesn't change and you keep loading again and again. So as you can see, now we are calling our own method service here because I did not call the get. There's nothing here, but I can call it here. I can say I'm going to call the doGet method, so I can say doGet, and then I have to pass these two parameters, right? It needs two of them, the request and the response. You can see that this is the same thing. HTTP server servlet request, an object, HTTP service servlet response, object. Okay, it takes two parameters. Same thing with the doGet, the doPost, and doPut, and so on. Okay, so it's the same object. So here I need to pass the request and the post. Request here, if I were to call that doGet, and then the response. So this is it's like a two-way street here. Whereas, so it receives the request. The request, in here, right, it sends a request to the get method. So the get method means it can grab any data here in the URL. So for example, if I put like here, name is equal to a Tom, then the request will be looking for the parameter name called name, and the value is Tom, right? Just like your regular web page parameters. That is the get method. If it's the post, then it's getting data from, not from the URL, but from the form body, right? We know those part. Okay, so here, that's why this request here is, you can access the request data in the URL here. Okay, the response is responsible for writing out back to the browser. Okay, so you use those two different objects, and then you can go back and forth right here in the servlet. Okay, that's why it needs to have both of these objects here. So now when I call the do get, and then now it's going to call this, it should print out the do get down here, right? It will init service and then do get, and then it will also print this out. Okay, so I save, close this, relaunch the site again. So you see the init service do get, it prints the message out to the browser. Okay, and then by the same token, if I were to call the do post in here, you see that no, not, yeah, do post, and again pass the request and then a response. It's a little bit tricky. You probably don't want to do this, but because if you call do post calls do get, and you get this recycle, right, which is not good. You don't want to do that. So let me take this part out. And so now we should have init service do get, and then the do post will be printed out in the console. And then so in the do post, we could write something else to the page here besides this one here. We could write something like a hello world or something, right? Now to write something out to the web page here, you can do it this way, or the preferred method is to call this print writer class. Okay, so you have to import that as part of the Java IO file. So print writer, and usually the common way is to use the object out, just for output. Okay, and is equal to it's going out to the web page, so it's gonna be calling the response. Okay, so it'll be response dot get writer. Okay, which is this one here. Okay, so instead of again typing response dot get writer dot something, I'll just put that into a short, variable name out. It's shorter. It's like the system that out there print line. You can just use that into a SOUT or something. Make it short. So make that as an object, and then I need to import this print writer as part of the Java IO. Okay, and then that's imported, and then now I can say out.print, just like your println method, and I'll put a message in here, and this is where you put your HTML tags. You can put like h1 and hello world, okay, and then close my h1 tag. Your pure HTML tag goes in here. And so a servlet, if you think of a servlet, is where you would embed HTML code inside Java code. Okay, you cannot just put HTML code in here. If you just do like HTML h1 here or something, right? Okay, it's not gonna let you. Yeah, it's not gonna let you. But when we learn Java JSP, that's what you do. So JSP and servlet is the opposite of each other. So a servlet, you will embed HTML in your code. This is like JavaScript, if you know JavaScript, right? You can't just put tags inside JavaScript. You have to write it out, document.write, and then you can write the HTML code, and it will be rendered on the web page. Okay, so you embed the Java HTML tags inside the Java code. And JSP, next week we learn, is you do the opposite. You will embed a Java code inside HTML. Okay, so if I save it now and run it, and then you see that it has the information down here at the bottom. The init service calls the do get prints this line. Do get also called the do post. So do post gets printed, and the do post render the HTML hello world h1 tag source code. You see that is here's the h1. Okay, so this is not a valid HTML file, but to make it correct, you will actually write it out so you have a full HTML document. All right? I don't know. Cool? Is it that's it, right? Yeah, so it's like that, okay? So again, you can copy this and then paste it to any web page here in any local browser, and well, it didn't. Yeah, did it work? No. Oh, you need a servlet. Okay, well, that was weird. Okay, so now let me stop this and then go back here. And so when you render your web page, I'm going to close this, or I need some space in here. So when you create your web page, so when you write it, you don't need to have this part here. I can take this out. Okay, this is not needed. The init, you don't need it. Okay, so the constructor, you don't need it. So basically, you just need one of these two here. Okay, depending on your web form. Because when I start the servlet from here, then it loads the get method by default. If I take this out, and then you see that now all I'm getting is just the do get. Okay, if I run this again, you see it only loads the get method because that's the default. That's the starting point. Okay. And if you want to load the post, well, you can, and from this perspective, you have to call it from within the do get to get the post. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to. So usually you would say I'll write a in here. Let me delete this, right? So to print this out, you could copy this and put it in here, or you can make this as a global. Right, you can put this outside here as a global. No, didn't like it. No, yeah, you can't. Well, you can, but it's a bit complicated because you have to call the HTTP servlet dot something. Okay, so here, usually you would say something like in here I want to print my HTML file. You would start HTML, that doc type, right? The whole thing, doc type. The HTML, your whole HTML file, right? And then you could do like copy, something like that. And then you have the HTML, and then you have the what's next? Head. Then you can do like altogether title, hello world, or something like that. And then close my head. Okay. And then here is my body, and then H1, hello world, close my H1. You can see it's pretty tedious work. Yeah, it's not fun. But, and then I'll close my body tag, and then close my HTML tag. So there's my complete HTML document, right? And then if I were to run this now, again, didn't show. I have to make sure it's do a couple times, and we're going to refresh. Okay, there it is. So if I review the source code, there's my HTML. Okay, so there's a lot of typing, a lot of work in here. And so instead of doing that, you could put this into what? How could you make this easier so you don't have to type this every time, right? Not a loop. Yeah, you can put a function, right? Yeah, method, right? So you go here like you could say public void maybe showed head or something, or header, right? Maybe like a show header or anything you want to call it. You put that here. Well, you want to put this actually in here. Okay, you put that there, and then, well, you have to put this whole thing here. This whole thing. Just copy this whole thing, put it here, I guess. Now what does it need? Oh, you need to throw and catch. I guess easier if you just do the whole thing. Throw exception, you put it here. And then instead of there, you could just now call show header. Then you send the request and then response. Okay, and then you can reuse this again on the other pages. But here, maybe you would stop right here, right? You don't need that. And then you would probably, let's see, you do this. So you copy this, put it here, and then you will show the footer here. And this part, I just need the footer part, which is that part. If you want to add some footer tags in here, that's fine. The body would end right about here, right? This is where the body starts, and then it ends right there. So if you have, if you remember PHP, same way. Okay, you load the header part, then the end of the footer part here, you could have something like out print, and then footer, and then what, copyright, whatever it is, right? And then you close your footer or something. And then maybe here you might have, whatever we want to call it. And then you have your main body. So here I will show the header, and then here I will show the footer down here at the bottom of my page. And then here I will show the body of my page, right? And you have a function to show the body of your web page. So you don't have to put everything here in the same method here. This is just the way you get started. From here on, I load my web page, I load my body, show my footer, and then what's the body look like? Okay, and then you can have another function, for example, here, and then based on that, you could just say now show body. Okay, and this is where I show my body's content information. So I could say now h1 hello world. And then if that's the only part of the body, that I can close up there. Or maybe you could do something like container, whatever it is, right? Container, a main tag, and header. You can also build another function for navigation. Okay, you can embed it inside the body tag, and then so on. So if you put all this together, you have a web page. Okay, so here's my web page. And use this. If you use the source code, here it is. It's all stitched together, just like a complete web page. Okay. I'm sorry, what's that?
What's the benefit of using Java rather than just
Dynamic web content. This is so Servlet is just another option for you to use to build dynamic content. So because with a servlet you can access the database, okay, whereas HTML you can't. Okay. Yep.
Do you recommend PHP more than Java, or
PHP and Java? It depends. Well, maybe not Servlet. Okay, Servlet is, as you can see, there's a lot of work involved with the HTML part, right? Maybe JSP. You learn that next week. JSP is very similar to PHP. It's almost exactly like PHP. Yeah, right. It does kind of like PHP, right? Because PHP. What?
I've never had PHP. What program is
It's PHP. Yeah. Yeah, it's called PHP. That is the language that is used, and it runs on the engine called Zend engine. Okay, so maybe you can take it next semester. Yeah, it's really fun, right? Yeah, it's much more fun than this. I can guarantee you that. But once you learn JSP next week, and then next time you learn PHP, you say, wow, it looks so similar. Yeah, very identical. But this is how you would create web pages. Again, you have to embed all the web tags inside a print statement like this. Okay, you cannot just output it out. and so on. So this is again like, but PHP you can mix HTML tag without putting into a write statement. You can just
Oh, okay.
yeah, you can exit out, put the HTML tag in there, and then go back to the code again and so on. So
Would it
whereas
be easier just to make the HTML file and just drag and drop, not drag and drop, but copy and paste, and into like print statements?
not sure what you mean.
So instead of like putting the doc type and all that stuff in here first, it would be simpler or easier just to put it all in like Notepad. Like do the HTML file and then just copy and paste lines.
Back in here. Yeah, you can. You can build everything. So it's kind of like PHP, right? You can build the whole page in HTML, and then later on just grab, cut, and
Yeah,
paste, put it in
that's
here, and then just kind of modify. Yeah, however you way to do it, that's completely fine. Maybe that's even the quicker way to do it. Okay.
So then how do you add the CSS?
CSS, then you have to code in there. If you say in here, like for example, in the head area, right above here.
So this column is valid.
Yes, you have to do exactly like style, and then H1 color red. So the whole 9 yard. Okay, so here's my style. H1 is red, and then if I run it now, refresh. Uh-oh, it doesn't load. Crashed. But yeah, so you would oh, I forgot to close my style. There you go. See how confusing this is already? Trying to write a single line of page on my web page. It still doesn't load. Again, patience. Okay, be very patient with this. There it is. Okay, all of that just to show this, and there's my style. H1. So yeah, of course you can do that. You can write an external file here as a style sheet, and you can embed it in here also, which is maybe easier. Okay, just like your regular HTML file, except you can't just put it here. You have to put it into the print statement. Okay. So that is that. Again, this is because I'm running directly from the servlet. You see, that's why it's doing this. So how do you get to the post, for example? How do you want to do that? And so now, one more thing I want to show you is this. So remember this part here, right? It's called servlet. So when you run it, it says /servlet. You can change it so that it will say hello instead. So all you do just basically change this to just a hello. Okay? And then the URL will now say hello instead of servlet. Again, just make sure you close this and then run it again. You see that it's now changed to hello. Okay? If you type in first servlet, it doesn't work anymore because it's no longer mapped to that page. Okay? So you can do that here. Actually there are more tags you can put in here, like a description and some other parameters. But this is where you put it. Now, if you don't put it here, this annotation here was made available, I think, in the couple versions back. Before that, we didn't have they didn't have this option. So what they did was, inside the web XML, if you open this file, you see that you have both the GUI interface and the source version. Okay, kind of like a Visual Basic. So in here, you could code it manually in here yourself, or you can do the design mode and then add it here. So what you do is that to have this same annotation here, you have to add the servlet in here. So I could go into the web app here, do the visual mode will be like do a right click here and add a child. Okay, add a child, and it's going to be called a servlet. Okay, add a servlet. So you see the servlet tags here. If you expand this, you have a servlet name. Okay, so the name can be anything. You can call it, hello world. Okay, you also need to have the class. So under the servlet tag, you can right click, and then you need to add a child called servlet class. And this is the class name you want to map to, which is called my first servlet. Okay, so first servlet. That's just the Java file you're using. Bless you. So you have the servlet created, and then now you add another child tag called the servlet mapping. Okay, and then inside the mapping, expand that. You have two parameters. Again, the name would be just the hello world, same as that up there. You have to match that. And then the pattern is the URL pattern. What do you want to call this? So if I call it hi there, okay, you can call it that, right? And then now if you do this, then just make sure you don't want to put that in here. You have to take this out. Otherwise, it will override it. So if you don't have that annotation, then since it's not there, then the server will look inside your web XML and see if there's a pattern in there. If it's not, then it doesn't know what to do. It cannot find it. It doesn't exist. Okay? So if you save this, if I go back to the servlet and I run, again, keep trying because the file doesn't, server doesn't recognize it yet. To run a couple times, it's trying to look for that file. Okay, if it doesn't work, usually it's Tomcat's fault. So yeah, go back to Tomcat and then just where is that? What's the server tab? It's gone. So view servers. Okay, just stop Tomcat and then just redo it again. Maybe it'll work this time. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't do it. Did I do it wrong? See the source. If you look at the source, this is where you would actually add in here. What's wrong with this? Okay, what if I change it to like just hi? Save. Close this. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not doing. So runs to this kind of issue, but it should map it to the word hi, and that should run your first servlet just like before. Okay. Bless you. Again, this one you don't have to worry about this file. This is only for because I think now it's not really used as much. It would look at these files. So these again some config files. Okay, we'll revisit this again when we learn JSP. But for now, just use the annotation. It's more effective. But I'm not sure why it's not working. But now it doesn't like my hello anymore either. So if you run into this issue again, just be very patient. Maybe I'll remove this whole thing again. I don't know why. Yeah. Alright, come on. Yeah, it doesn't want to do it. So you will run into this issue. Okay, so we're back. So if you run into the issue, you can just keep turn off Tomcat and run it again, and then do it a few times. Okay, it's not. Yeah, it is. It is very annoying sometimes. There's a lot of interference. Okay, so that's how you code your files in here. Now I want to show you how you create a web page so that I can load this page. Okay, so in here in the web content folder, just do a right click and then create a new file. It's going to be an HTML file, just any HTML. You can call it index.html, it's fine. Okay, finish. And you are presented with this whole other stuff. Well, again, we'll visit this later. This is more of the JSP, JSF content. But you could just basically remove all of these and then, save your HTML, remove all these UI stuff. Okay, it's kind of. Yeah. If it's empty, then just create a new file. Just a HTML file, right? Head, and then again, you can copy this from a different page is fine, a different source, and just paste it in here, just the text. just want to show you where your HTML file lives. Okay, so in here the body, and again, just say I have a form. Okay, the action will be going to my class called first servlet. Okay, it's going to call that file, that object, or the file, and the method is going to be, again, we'll just say get for now, right? This is just plain HTML, and I have a input text will be just put name, and then we'll just put name here, and then we'll have a input type of submit. Okay, very simple form. Okay, and then I'm going to run this file, and it should load just like a regular HTML file. You can see here the button here, and if I type in, you know, Christian or whatever, click submit. Oh, actually, you know what? Do we change? Yeah, yeah. It should, no. It should go to the hello. We call it hello, right? Yeah, we call it hello, not these. Yeah, we'll see if that's the right one. Okay. Let's see. So it doesn't work. Oh, it didn't refresh. It didn't save that. Let's do a couple times. See, it's still loading that servlet. It should be hello here. Should be like that. Okay. So again, it's the caching on the server. So we load this hello, and then now in here you can access, because it's called the get method. Notice that the name is available here. So to get that name, I could go in here inside my hello, inside the body, and say hello, where I would say hello, then whatever that name is, right? I'll say hello, and then I'll put a space there, and I could append. Here will be plus the would be the request dot get parameter. Okay. But what is the parameter name called? It's called name, right? That's the name of the form element. It will grab the name from the URLs. In this case, it will grab the name in the equal test, and then I just basically again append and then close my h1. Okay. So we should say hello, whatever the name is. And again, if you refresh this, it will say hello test. Okay. If you put the name, will be like a different name, will be John. Then we load this page, it will say hello, hello John. Well, again,
Well,
caching.
you know.
Yeah, you know. Let's see. Yeah, it still doesn't get cached correctly, but that should have gone to hello and then Joe. Okay. So this is how you access data from the form. And if you are to use the post, then you will put post here, right? It will put post. Then what it does now is when you access this file, then it's gonna call the post, not the get, but the post part. Okay, so when you get there, then okay, notice that this whole thing is not being printed. So you're not gonna see the header, the body, and footer, so on. So again, you would basically put everything here in the same space, same place, and put that in here. Okay, because it's a post and the get and so on, right? So if you don't want this, then you will call the service, and because the service gets called first, and then on the service, then you can say, okay, now where do I go? Either the post or the get. You can determine what type of response was it. Is it a request, a get, or a post? If it's a post, then call the post. If it's a get, then call the get, right? So you have all those options. Otherwise, you will repeat that in here again, and then maybe the post, when you get the data from the post, it would not be the get request here method, but it would be the different type of, well, I think it'll still be the same here. Still be request.
If you go back to the index, I think I might miss something. Oh yeah, okay.
Okay, so So just again depend on the form here. HTML, if it's a post, it's gonna call the post method. If it's a get, that's gonna call the get method, and then you can put your code in here and your code in here and build your HTML code based on that. Just remember that when you print out your HTML file, you have to use the print writer to print it out. Okay. And then I also put, yeah, I think that's, so it's a good idea to put your header into its own function. Just call it, and the footer and the body, and if you have a navigation, create a navigation somewhere and then put it inside the body or even here, just call navigation so you have more control of your file. You can reuse it again and again, right? It's reusability. So again, if you want to connect to a database, you would do exactly like we did in the previous chapter. Okay, you need to load the driver. Make sure you load the MySQL connector driver. Connect to a database. You can create a function here, for example, in the do get, or maybe in the service, or wherever it is, or maybe in the init part, right? When you initialize, call it init because it only does it one time. Then inside the init, you could initialize the database connection in there. And then after that, it's available throughout your entire servlet. And then now you can build your forms, your web forms, and then you can go from there. So when you build a separate page, then you will build another class, right? So this for the home page, index page, different page will be another page, another servlet, and you build that way, and you pass data that way. So you can call. So by doing that, let's say when you build the application for the my row count, you have one for every screen, right? Or for the survey, another screen will be another servlet for the edit, and the one for the tally of your total votes and so on. So you have 3 or 4 different servlets. Again, just Java class. Okay. So in the homework assignment for this one here, it's just really short homework assignment. He's so happy, right? Okay, so in here, you're going to do exercise 37.1, just that factorial table. So you're going to write a table, right? So in here, let's see what that is. 37.1. It should be really easy, which is this one here. Okay? This factorial table. And again, I know it's math again, but it should be fairly simple. So you basically write since it's factorial, I hope that you will use a loop instead. We learned, right, use loop already. So instead of, manually do this 10 times, do it at n number of times. But it just asks you to do 1 to 10, so I think that's big enough because factorial grows really fast, or it grows really big. It might crash your system. So I probably wouldn't recommend going more than maybe 15. That's pretty big. Okay, so we know what a factorial is, right? Or do we not? So factorial is just basically you get a number, any number, right? And then you just multiply every number from 0, well, not including 0, from 1 to that number. So if it's 10, then it'll be the 10 will be like 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 all the way down times 1, and you get that number. So factorial 3 will be just 6 because 3 times 2 times 1, and the factorial 0 is always 1. Okay, that is the rule. Okay, so you never get 0 for factorial. So you're going to write that using Java Servlet, and so I probably would encourage you to build a good web page. I mean, like header and footer and so on. Don't just put a table, right? Put it to a header and footer. So I put the information. I thought I did. Yeah. So if you look at the chapter 9, it has something about the recursive, non-recursive method. If you are more familiar with recursion, you can use chapter 18. But again, this is a little bit tricky. So in chapter 9, if you go in there, the formula for a recursion is there. So what page is it? Page 343. Okay, so how do I get there? So here's the not even here. I don't know why I put that there.
It's in the old book,
Did I?
probably.
Yeah, but recursion is pretty simple. Okay, you just basically you loop through a number, right? you find in the code. You just say for I is 0, and then I is less than n, whatever n, it can be 5, and then I plus plus, and then you can just say so loop through number n minus 1 or n plus 1 plus 2, and then you just times it. So you will have a sum somewhere, right? You can have sum equal or total equals 0, and then here will be sum plus, not plus, times, right? Times I, and you do that 10 times or the n times. Okay, and you get a because a multiplication from 1 to maybe not 0, you should put it with 0, put 1 to whatever that is, will give you that number. Okay, get a factorial, and you get that pretty large number. But you do that in a loop, so that it will also build this table for you. All right. So that is the homework assignment, and again, if you get stuck anywhere, please just send me email. I'll see if I can also find other sources to help you out, but this is pretty much what a servlet does. Okay, again, the idea of servlet is to embed HTML code inside your Java code. Okay, and then so this is the only chapter we talk about servlet. Next week we'll go to JSP already, so we're moving kind of fast from here on. So hopefully, I don't know, what you use in JavaFX in the database section will help you to maybe use this as a candidate for your project. I kind of doubt it, but because this is a lot of work. Okay, it's kind of tedious work, but at least you know how it works behind the scene. All right, so yeah, so that's it, and next week we'll look at JSP, which is much more fun. Okay, have a good night.